Okay. A little bit of technical difficulties, but we are good. Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to jump straight in. So, welcome to the Plutonian Alchemy live stream. And today's live stream is going to be on alchemy, just alchemy, transformation, and the planet Pluto. And we're going to talk a lot about symbolism, and I'll be sharing insights with you guys on how to transmute survival patterns into empowerment. So, this live stream here is for my Plutonian people, so my Pluto, Scorpio, eighth house dominant people. This live stream is for you. So let's get right into it. Internal alchemy is about taking your inner lead and turning it into spiritual gold. It's like how in alchemy you go from lead, which is the base metal, to gold, okay, which is the refined metal. And what this symbolizes is going from your base level survival patterns into freedom, clarity, enlightenment, and power. Okay. Hello, welcome to the two people in the chat. Say hello, like this live on your way in. I just started, and we're talking about inner alchemy. Okay. So, inner alchemy is about taking your inner lead. Hey, hey, I was having technical difficulties, but thank you for coming, Billy. If you have any questions, just save it until the end so I could get right into the live because I have a lot to talk about. So we'll have a little Q&A at the end. Um, so inner alchemy is very essential to bad. Okay. Inner alchemy is very essential to people who have strong Plutonian energy, okay? Because when we're talking about Plutonian energy, we're talking about survival, okay? A lot of the times, Pluto dominant, eighth house dominant, Scorpio dominant individuals, they experience being in survival cycles, okay? So it's imperative that they understand the art of inner alchemy, okay? So we're going to talk about some symbolism. So understanding that inner alchemy is about taking your inner lead and turning it into your spiritual gold, we have to talk about the snake symbolism. This is a symbol that is often associated with Scorpio energy. And the snake is a symbol of wisdom and regeneration. Okay. And what this speaks to is it's talking about having the wisdom and the knowledge to heal yourself. Okay. And I feel like for a lot of Plutonians, they go through a lot of experiences where if they're not careful, it could poison them internally. So when you think of a snake, you think of poison, at least most snakes, right? The key here is not spiraling and letting the traumatic experiences that you've endured poison you, but let it be a source of wisdom for you to help you regenerate yourself internally. Okay. So that's the snake symbolism. The snake symbolism is very powerful. And it really also reminds me with the internal alchemy, it reminds me of the Kundalini awakening. Okay. And we'll get into more of that, but it's basically the same concept of starting from the base and then rising up to the top. Okay. And the top is like your crown chakra where you're enlightened. Okay. So that's the snake symbolism. So working with the snake symbolism is important. Understanding the symbolism of fire is another one. Fire is a symbol of purification. Okay. It's a symbol of rebirth. And fire is also representative of destruction as well. So this is like a well-known symbolism for Scorpio energy is fire. When you think of Scorpio, you think like the pits of hell in fire, right? And how I see fire is like it's representative of that rage that a lot of Plutonians tend to feel, um, especially with a lot of the experiences that they go through. Plutonians, they go through a lot of heavy, intense, traumatic experiences that could leave them feeling very vengeful, very rageful, right? So, um, fire is something important to work with, especially because Scorpio is ruled by Mars, so it's a fire planet. So it's important to be very intentional with your emotions as a Plutonian. As a Plutonian, you could spiral and you could just be raging, and then things just get out of control, and then you could self destruct, right? Thank you to whoever left me the like. Thank you so much. Um, so Plutonians, they have like this inner rage, and if they're not careful, they could self-destruct. Fire is very destructive energy. So the key here is taking that inner fire and using it as inspiration, using it as a means to really get the fire going and light the fire under your ass to do something, to do something to help yourself. Because being Plutonian dominant, you learn very fast that people aren't going to come to save you and you got to save yourself. Okay. So that fire energy will light the fire under you to get you going and to uh, really make a change in your life. Okay. And something else with fire, going back to what I was saying earlier about how it's representative of purification. When you think about traumatic experiences, you think of those icky feelings, right? Like whenever you experience something very emotionally impactful, very traumatic, it leaves you with this gross feeling, right? It leaves you with this feeling of like shame, guilt, anger, just a lot of just icky emotions. And how do you clean up icky things? You purify it, you clean it, right? So the key with working with your fire energy is allowing that fire to destroy the link to your past so you don't keep cycling and not allowing it to destroy you. Okay? Not allowing it to destroy you and allowing it to help you transcend. And that's where we get into like the phoenix symbolism. Okay. The phoenix is like a fire bird. And when you think of a bird, you think of freedom. And what the phoenix is representing rebirth. Rebirth from dark times, rebirth from a traumatic cycle. Welcome to the third person. And now you just finally transcended that and you left that behind. Okay. And this is where the transformation comes in, where you finally completely detach from that old version of yourself. So, super powerful, the symbol of the snake in fire. Very key symbols for Scorpio energy. Okay. Let me see. I wrote down a whole bunch of notes. So if I look down, I'm looking at my notes to make sure I stay on track. Okay. So another key thing to talk about. Hey, Ava, I haven't seen you in a while. How you been? Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. Welcome to the live. I'm glad you made it. And I hope you enjoy. And if you haven't already, give this live stream a like. And I'm still in the beginning of the live. You haven't really missed much. I was talking about snake symbolism and fire symbolism. And I talked a little bit about inner alchemy, okay? Because that is the basis of this live stream. And if you have any questions, save it until the end. I'll be having a Q&A and I'll answer any of your questions. We're going to talk about trauma and brain chemistry. I don't think a lot of people realize how trauma really alters you on an internal level. Okay. Your brain chemistry is responsible for a lot of different things in your body. It's responsible for you said your life has been lifing. Thank you. Thank you so much. You need this topic? I'm glad. Okay, so your brain chemistry, it is linked to like your brain functions, your hormones, cortisol levels, all of that. And trauma, it really alters a lot of these internal mechanisms within you. And when you experience trauma, not only does it raise your cortisol levels, like it causes a lot of stress and anxiety, you're very hyper vigilant, you're on edge, but it affects your mood. So this is why you could find like after experiencing a deep traumatic experience, you experience a lot of like obsessive thoughts, a lot of intrusive, just negative, depressing thoughts, makes you very moody. You could just be a very on edge and aggressive person, and that's because your nervous system is dysregulated. Okay. When your nervous system is dysregulated, this makes you very unhinged. It can make you very unhinged. It brings a lot of inner chaos within, okay? And this causes you to be very scattered and all over the place as a person. This is the beauty of internal alchemy. Internal alchemy, it helps you restore your nervous system. And internal alchemy, it helps you realign and it helps you rewire your internal mechanism so you could get back to a balanced state. Internal alchemy. What else do I have to say about it? I feel like it's very psychological. I feel like a lot of it is very psychological because going back to trauma, it's like you're rewiring your brain because a lot of your psychology has been altered. So trauma could bring a lot of mental health issues. And internal alchemy, it has so many benefits. Not only it heals you mentally, it heals you spiritually, and which will result in like your physical well-being being in a good state as well. So internal alchemy is a very powerful practice. It's a practice that requires a lot of honesty and self accountability. So this work is very intense. Okay. Internal alchemy is very intense, and it's not a practice that is for everybody because not a lot of people are ready to face the truth of who they are. Not everybody is ready to face a lot of their inner demons, right? So approach this kind of work with an open mind, approach it with an open heart, and be willing. Okay. Be willing. I feel like that's the key with internal alchemy. It requires you to have a lot of awareness within yourself and to just hold yourself accountable. So, are you guys following me so far? I just want to check in with you guys. I hope you guys are following me. So that's like the brain chemistry part. And I found that very interesting because this is why Scorpio energy, it's linked to psychology. Good. I'm glad, Billy. Um, yeah, Scorpio energy is linked to psychology. Okay, so it's a lot of mental things that people who are Plutonian dominant is really about having a strong mind, a strong spirit too, but definitely a strong mind, right? So now we're going to move on to the next section. So the next section, we're going to talk about Pluto symbolism. Okay. Now, Pluto is one of my favorite planets. Okay. And Pluto is one of those planets where it's not for the faint of heart. Okay. But let's break down like the glyph, because you know how every planet has like a symbol, right? So I'm going to decode the glyph with you guys. The Pluto glyph is basically describing the process of internal alchemy. Okay. So had to get some water. Okay, so the Pluto glyph. So let's take a look at it together. So the circle in the Pluto glyph, it represents the consciousness, the spirit, and the moon part of the Pluto glyph, it looks like a crescent. It's a crescent moon. So the moon represents the subconscious. It represents your deep psyche, right? And then we have the cross of matter. Hi, welcome. I have not seen you before, but welcome to the live. Thank you for coming in and be sure to like the live on your way in. So, what the Pluto glyph is talking about is when you descend into the underworld, quote unquote, right? The underworld is just basically taking a deep dive into your subconscious and doing the shadow work. So, it's about taking that descent into your subconscious to do the deep inner work for self exploration and to for the shadow work and self healing. And what Pluto is doing is like it's helping you see yourself on a soul level. One thing about Pluto is that Pluto is not a planet that has to do with illusions. Pluto does not do illusions, okay? So working with Pluto, that means you're being stripped of your ego. Okay. The sun is your ego. When you're working in the realm of Pluto, Pluto is helping you address yourself on a deep soul level. Okay. Pluto is helping you get to the root. Okay. And this makes me think of the deity Kali Ma. And she is a deity that represents this about the death of the ego, how she kills the ego. So what you're left with is your true inner raw emotions, your raw soul, right? One of my favorite deities. Working with Pluto, it requires you to really be raw. Inner alchemy is really going to help you get to the root of who you truly are. It's really going to expose a lot of aspects of yourself that were hidden from you, that you suppressed. is really just getting down and dirty. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. Pluto, it reminds me of um, another deity, another couple of deities that I was tuning into is Hades. So, if you guys know about the Greek myth of Hades, how he's the lord of the underworld and wealth, right? And another deity that is not well known, and this is part of the Yoruba African religion, is Olokun. Okay. He is an African deity that represents a lot of things. He represents wealth. Okay. He represents ancestral wisdom. He is the deity that has connections to the ancestral realm. And these deities are very essential to inner alchemy because inner alchemy is really putting you under that pressure to transform. It's really putting you under that pressure to refine yourself. Okay. Think of how diamonds are formed underground. Think of how crystals are formed underground. Ava, you said you come from a family of Olokun priestesses. Yes, Olokun is actually like androgynous. So sometimes they'll say like Olokun is a woman, sometimes they say it's a man. So Olokun is very multifaceted. And, Olokun could speak to any gender. But what these deities remind you of is of your spiritual wealth. Okay, that is what these deities are talking about. That is what these deities are representing. And what Pluto is representing and reminding you of is that deep well of internal resources and wealth within you. Okay, and that is what Pluto is helping you do. Pluto isn't stripping you of things to punish you. Pluto strips you of things to get to the truth of who you are. Inner alchemy and working with Pluto is really about getting back in alignment with yourself. And it's also deep work when it comes to your self esteem and your self value. Because when you think about it, Scorpio is opposite Taurus. Taurus is the sign of self worth and self value. So that comes from within. Okay. In order for you to be wealthy, right? In order for you to be abundant and wealthy, you have to do that inner work first. Doing internal alchemy, it's going to feel very, hello, currency deity, welcome. I'll answer your questions at the end. Just save your questions and I'll be doing a Q&A at the end. So yes, this work is very pressuring on the soul. It could feel, you're welcome. It could feel like a whole lot. It could feel very intense. And what Pluto is doing, it's helping refine you to your best self, your most strongest self, because when you think about crystals and diamonds, they're very durable, especially gold, right? Gold is, they say gold is indestructible, right? So, from your traumatic experiences, from the deep shadow work, all of these things are there. All of these things are part of the process to help regain your strength and become unbreakable. That doesn't mean that you're invincible per se, but you definitely have a lot of internal strength to where nothing could really break you like that. Nothing could take you down, especially because you've already been through the thick of it already. And I feel like a lot of Plutonians can attest to this when, we've been through so much, we've got it out the mud. We've experienced hell and back many times. And, you know, this creates an indestructible inner endurance within yourself, right? It makes you very spiritually strong. It makes you very spiritually wise. And this goes back to the spiritual wealth, right? All your experiences that you've accumulated over your lifetime, this translates into a wealth of knowledge, right? A deep well of knowledge. Okay, making you a very spiritually wealthy person. And that's something that I've been saying, especially in this day and age that we're in now. The surface level clout chasing, that is no longer going to be a thing, especially as the years go on. It's going to be about spiritual wealth reigning supreme. Okay. And I feel like Plutonians were already ahead of the game on this, because it's like we've been doing the spiritual work. We've been going through the inner transformations, to where, we're going to be ahead of the game. Okay. And it's going to make us, very valuable in the years to come. Okay. Because a lot of people are going to be looking for our depth. A lot of people are going to be looking for our wisdom during these times. So, spiritual wealth reigns supreme, and that is the realm of Pluto. So, Pluto transits, this is why they take so long. They take so long because inner alchemy is a process. It's not a 1, 2, 3, one and done kind of thing. It's a whole process that requires a lot of patience, and it takes time to work through a lot of things, because think about it. These things, a lot of these patterns, a lot of the, karmic patterns, a lot of the, emotional patterns, all these things, the trauma, these things get deeply embedded in your psyche. And a lot of these things too, they could also be ancestral too. And this is why I brought up Olokun, okay? Because working with Pluto energy, or even just having Scorpio energy, naturally, you're somebody that is very attuned to the ancestors. You are somebody that is supposed to be working with your ancestors. So Olokun reminds us of that. Okay. It reminds us of, our soul. It goes well beyond just what's going on in this lifetime. You're also accounting for your ancestors' lifetimes as well. So you're working through a lot when it comes to Pluto energy. It's not just yourself, you're also doing it for your bloodline too, right? So people who courageously step into this work, you're not only are you're doing great things for yourself and the future generation, but you're also doing very great things for your ancestors, things that they didn't have the knowledge to do, they didn't have the access, they didn't have the time to do, because they were in survival. A lot of our ancestors were in survival. And I feel like Plutonians, this is why we tend to end up in a lot of these issues having to do with our survival, you know? It's just kind of the experiences and the lessons that are a part of the Plutonian experience, right? Because this is just our soul lessons. So, yes, Pluto transits, if you're undergoing one right now, if you have underwent one, especially to your personal planets, the process is long. Okay, Pluto transits, they take like a good some years to go through one sign. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, for instance, we have Pluto in Aquarius right now. Pluto in Aquarius won't be over until like, I believe like 2030 something, you know. So we have a long way to go. So imagine that, but in your own personal chart where Pluto is affecting like a personal planet. It's going to be a long period of pressure, a long period of intensity, a long period of just being in the unconscious, right? And you could find that during Pluto transits, you go through a deep loss, not only just loss of external things, but loss of aspects of yourself that you thought were true to who you are, but they aren't, right? Pluto is going to hold that mirror up to you and have you get honest with yourself. Okay. Pluto, it helps you navigate these cycles, these transformation cycles consciously, right? So, um, it's a lot. Pluto transits are a lot, but I love Pluto because I love the realness, I love the honesty, I love the power that comes from it. And that's essentially what's the end result of it all. Doing the deep inner alchemy, it brings you out on the other side stronger and in your power. Okay, so you may go through a period of loss, disempowerment, lack, but this is why you're working consciously with the unconscious to regain your power back and regain it in a way to where it stays and it's lasting, right? So, moving on from that, um, we're going to talk about, healing and application because I gave you guys a lot of insight on symbolism. Thank you. I gave you guys a lot of insight on symbolism, but it's really important to not only know this knowledge, but also apply it and how this could look. Something to understand about Pluto energy is that it's chaos energy. Okay. So, what does it look like when somebody has experienced a lot of trauma or somebody who just operates in chaos? Because if you're Plutonian dominant, you know exactly what I'm talking about, where not only are you internally chaotic, but this also reflects on the outside. Being in chaos, it causes you to be very scattered of a person, and this leads you to making a lot of poor decisions. Like your judgment is really off. And that's because when you're in chaos, you're disconnected from your intuition. You're not thinking clearly, you're not focused. Healing the chaos within you, not only does it allow you to be empowered, but this allows you to restore balance and it helps you get back into flow. Okay. And I feel like that is another key thing with healing being a Plutonian is returning back to flow, being aware of obsessive behaviors, any fears, just very irrational reactions, just being aware of these things and catching it in the moment, right? Catching it in the moment so your energy doesn't go in the wrong places. Because that's the thing with being a Plutonian is that our energy, it tends to be misaligned, right? Our intensity tends to be misaligned for things that are not for our highest and best good, and it takes us out of alignment with ourselves and it takes us off path. I feel like part of healing is like releasing those survival patterns by just having awareness on your emotional reactions. And something that I say that I would, a tip that I would give any Plutonian is respond, don't react. And I say this because it's like we have a tendency, because I'm Plutonian as well, we have a tendency to have like these big reactions, right? We allow people to trigger us. Okay. And that's something that you'll find with living this kind of life and having these kinds of energies is that you're often triggered. And this is why it's important to have a handle over your shadow. I made a post on my Instagram where I was talking about owning your shadow or it'll own you, right? And what I mean is like when you're not doing the inner work, when you're not doing that inner alchemy to have a handle over your shadow, not only having just a handle over it, but integrating it, this is where the shadow starts projecting outward, and then it starts manifesting to where people are triggering you, and it manifests in like you're in now in like a power struggle, right? You're fighting for control over your energy and your domain, right? So healing is recognizing these patterns, and especially recognizing where when you're emotionally charged, right? When you're emotionally charged up, before you react, just take a minute and be very conscious of where that energy goes, because that very energy can make you or break you, right? And this goes back to focus, focusing your energy in the right places. The Plutonians, it's really about getting focused and grounded, right? So use your intensity as a strength and use it as a way to channel it into something productive like creativity. Don't be a crash out. Definitely don't be a crash out. Focus it into your creativity, whether it's art or just quite literally focus it in creating more of what you do want instead of what you don't want. Okay? Because I feel like Plutonians, they have a tendency to create a lot of what they don't want. Okay. And I feel like that's kind of the lower octave of Scorpio, is kind of just instead of transcending the drama, it's like they're like in the mix. You know what I'm saying? Because it just gives them like a rush. Right? And I feel like any Plutonian has been low key guilty of this, where it's like you know, like you have no business being in the mix of like all this drama and unnecessary stuff, but it's like you be in it because it gives you like a rush. But I feel like this is where people who are Scorpio dominant, eighth house dominant, this is where they evolve, where it's like they transcend the drama because they realize, okay, this is not doing anything for me. This is only keeping me in a cycle, and this is very disempowering as well, right? So it's really about channeling your intensity into growth, right? Up leveling yourself, evolving. Okay. And that's why it's very important to be very much so aware of your emotional state, because your emotional state really dictates a lot of outcomes in your life. So this is where we get into the chakras. So I highlighted a couple of chakras that I feel is very important to Plutonians, which is the root chakra, which is like your base level chakra, and your sacral chakra. So that's the chakra below your navel, right? So the root chakra is represented by red. This is why I wore red. And then there's the sacral chakra, which is orange. Okay. Now, the root chakra is very earthy, it's very grounded, but it is ruled by Mars. Okay. And I wanted to highlight this because this is very essential, because Plutonian energy is Martian energy, is ruled by Mars. Okay. The root chakra is linked to the planet Mars. The planet Mars highlights survival, right? Your instincts, your animalistic base level instincts. Okay. And the sacral chakra is linked to emotional expression, creativity, and your inner rhythms, right? Your flow. So, why is this important? It's important because it's important to heal your root chakra, okay? Because an unhealthy root chakra is representative of a lot of what I've been talking about, of chaos energy and operating in your base level. When you're operating in your base level, you are not operating at your highest and best self. You're doing things out of survival. You're doing things out of fear. You're doing things because you want to control. right? And when you're operating in survival, this is where you find yourself in a lot of compromising situations, right? You end up compromising your morals, you end up, you know, being in disempowering situations. You end up just fighting for your life, right? To stay alive, to stay secure, right? You know, the root chakra is your chakra that is your ability to feel safe and secure. And I feel like that is a lot of the issue with Scorpio energy, is that they tend to not feel safe and secure in life, right? Which is why they do a lot of the crazy things that they do to find security within themselves. Whether it's they have to control things, whether they have to do criminal things, you know, to get whatever material security, just a lot of just crazy things, right? So, another thing that I wanted to say about the root chakra too is not only linked to your base level instincts personally, but it's also linked to ancestors as well. Is linked to your ancestral karma. It's linked to ancestral patterns. Um, so working with your root chakra, it could give you a lot of insight into a lot of generational patterns, um, family karma, ancestral karma. All of these things are linked to the root chakra. And all of these things are a result of why you could see certain negative patterns show up in your life, right? And how that affects you even on a like a material level. So, you know, you can experience all types of karma with ancestors. It could be karma with love, karma with money. All of these things, it all links back to ancestry. And that's why I spoke about Olokun earlier, because um, Olokun is that gateway to the ancestral realm, right? Your root chakra is that gateway into the ancestral realm, right? So it's important to be aware of your internal patterns, especially on like a ancestral level as well. So it's really important to tune into your ancestors, work with them, and really channel in a lot of the history and understanding your culture, because this will give you a lot of insight into a lot of your deep rooted patterns. And when it comes to the root chakra, it's not to say like your instincts are bad. It's more so when you're operating in your negative base level instincts. When you're operating in your negative base level instincts, this causes you to make a lot of destructive decisions, and you just cause a lot of destruction in your actions. You know, Mars is the planet of action. So Mars is that part of you, it's like that innate reactionary response that you have to your environment, okay? Having a handle on that, it allows you to it allows you to be centered within yourself, and it allows you to flow, okay? And this is where we get into the sacral chakra. The sacral chakra is a water chakra, so it's linked to um, your natural rhythms and just being able to establish that sense of calm and flow within yourself. Okay. So, whenever I think of the sacral chakra, it makes me think of something that I've been studying into for a while, is a mixture of Taoism. So, it's like a Chinese religion and Egyptian alchemy. And something that they were talking about is when it comes to internal alchemy, it's being able to return to a state of balance and to a natural state of flow, okay, to be in tune with the natural flow of the universe. That reminds me of the sacral chakra because, the sacral chakra is also the chakra that is linked to your emotions, right? So when you have a imbalanced sacral chakra, this is representative that you have a lot of energetic blocks, especially a lot of emotional blocks. And I feel like a lot of Plutonians, they struggle with blockages, right? And all that is just a lack of energy flow. So, inner alchemy, it helps you get back into a state of balance and flow, right? To where you can let go and trust. And how I envision it is like once you have a handle over your energy, especially like your intense emotions, once you get to a place of balance and flow, it just makes me think of like you're just going down a stream. You know what I'm saying? It's like, how you just go down a stream and it just rides. That is the place that you need to get to as a Plutonian. It gets you to a place where it's like you let go of this need to control. I feel like that is like a really big thing for Plutonians, is like this inner need to control everything, especially things that are not in their control, right? And I feel like Taoism and Egyptian alchemy remind us of that. I feel like the key thing here is, and what inner alchemy is reminding us and helping us do, is to not allow chaos to overtake us, right? And and this is where I get into the importance of emotional regulation. As somebody who is a Plutonian myself, listen, I've been through a lot of emotional trauma and I grew up around a lot of dysfunction myself. So that caused my nervous system to be dysregulated. And this made me feel unsafe within myself. I feel like when you're emotionally dysregulated, this doesn't allow you to feel safe. It doesn't allow you to feel at ease within your body. And this is what the sacral chakra reminds you to do. It brings you back to ease and it allows you to feel that, it allows you to feel that inner ease within yourself, right? To where you don't feel so tense. It's about coming back to balance. So, something that I learned being a Plutonian myself is like once you get to that place of balance, honestly, nothing outside of you can shake you. Nothing, you could be in the middle of chaos, but once you mastered that internal balance, like you could be centered and grounded within yourself no matter where you are. You know what I'm saying? Um And it reminds me of something that my Scorpio friend told me, or has told me many times, is that a philosophy that he lives by is that he's always in daily meditation constantly. It's not a moment that he takes out of his day, but this is just the way of life that he lives because he understands the importance of grounding yourself emotionally and being centered because it allows you to have control over your energy and where it goes. It allows you to be in tune with your intuition. That's another thing. And it allows you to be focused. Focus your energy. Okay. When you're focused, you are unstoppable. It doesn't matter what type of nonsense is going on outside of you. When you're centered and focused, listen, all that noise doesn't matter. And you're able to achieve your goals. You're able to um, create more of what you want in your life. You're able to evolve and progress, right? And I feel like that's key because people with Scorpio dominant energy, they can get caught up in distractions. They could get caught up with unnecessary power struggles with people, which will block their ability to progress forward, right? So, emotional regulation is key to internal alchemy. Emotional regulation. So yeah, that is pretty much everything. And I know I had to kind of like speed through this because I didn't want to lose light, like the natural light, and then also I put myself on a time limit today. Um, but I want to leave you guys with this question. The question is, where in your life are you holding on to old patterns and control? And what would it look like and feel like to fully release these things and be in your power? I want that to be a question that you guys journal on, because the Plutonian experience is one of those experiences where it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of reflecting, to really. Yes, I'm giving you homework. What, like, Billy, you don't like homework? You don't like, listen, this is good homework, though. This is homework that will help activate the. Dave, you don't like homework? Listen, this is good homework. This is homework that will help you kickstart the transformation. Okay? Listen. This is homework that will help you kickstart the transformation. I'm not going to come on here and just give you guys a whole bunch of information and not encourage you guys to apply it, right? You have to apply. So, yes, I ask you guys to write this down as a journaling prompt and really ask yourselves, where am I still holding on to control? Where am I still stuck in an old cycle, right? And this is one of those homeworks where it's going to have you envision and deeply reflect and really tune into your body and how you feel, because what this is helping you do, it's helping you start that internal shift in the right direction, right? So, and that is my goal. I'm here to help you guys transform. I'm here to help you guys heal internally and really become empowered within yourself. So really ask yourselves, where is it that you're still holding on to a situation where you feel disempowered? And envision in your mind and feel in your body, how would it feel if you completely just let it go? You just burn it down, right? For those of you who were here in the beginning and I talked about the fire symbolism, what would it feel like and look like to completely burn it all the way down, right? And reclaim your power in full. For those of you who follow me on social media, you would have seen that on Wednesday, I released my Plutonian alchemy session. And it's a 90-minute session where I work with people who are Plutonian. So you have a lot of Pluto. Okay. Thank you for coming. So this session is for people who have heavy Pluto aspects, eighth house dominant, and your Scorpio dominant, right? And basically in this session, it's a 90-minute session where I work with your Plutonian placements. So whether you just have Scorpio placements or you have a mix of Pluto in eighth house, however you're mixed up, I hone in on those parts of your chart and we do exercises together so I can help guide you through your transformation. It helps you transform your shadow into empowerment. That is the basis of this session, and it's a live session. So you get to come on live and work one on one with me. I give you insight and also practical tools depending on what comes through during the session that you could work with outside of the session. So you could continue the transformation beyond just the 90-minute session with me. I just give you the tools, right? So that is what I've been working on behind the scenes. And that is why I came on here to introduce this service to you guys. And also because I just feel like it's important to talk about alchemy. I'm really big on alchemy. That is the basis of my business, is alchemy. And yeah. So this is my new service. And if you guys are interested in getting this service with me, my books are open for it in October, because the rest of September I'm like busy doing stuff. But in October I'll have availability for it. So if you're interested in booking the Plutonian alchemy session, I'll be open in October. Okay. So now I am open for questions. So lay it on me, guys. What are your questions that you have for me? Do you guys have any questions about the live? Anything that I said, anything that you guys need clarity on, please let me know in the chat. Now it's time to have the Q&A so we could wrap up. I'll tell you my sun sign. I'm a Virgo. Are you like super new to my channel? I'm soul based. Okay. Are you new to my channel? You knew it. How did you know? How did you know? How do you know if you have strong Plutonian energy? So, if you have heavy Pluto aspects, if you have a stellium in Scorpio, if you have a stellium of eighth house planets, that is how you know you have heavy Plutonian energy, right? You've been watching my videos for how long? You're well put together in the background. Y'all don't like my little fall background? Listen, I know it's a little bootleg, but I just wanted to, bedazzle it a little bit for you guys. And I love fall, it's my favorite season. So I give Virgo. Well, what's your thoughts, Ava? Like, how do I give Virgo to you? Well, I feel like you guys are low key picking on me. um, okay, so what about Jupiter in the eighth? What is the advantage of it? So Jupiter in the eighth is actually, it's very powerful. So Jupiter in the eighth, I will say, gives you a lot of spiritual gifts. And I will say the eighth house is the house of inheritance. So you're most likely someone who inherited a lot of spiritual gifts from your ancestors. You may be very spiritually inclined out of your whole family line. It's really good for spiritual knowledge. What does it mean if you have a Scorpio stellium and your North Node is in the second house? If you have a Scorpio stellium, that means that you're in this lifetime dealing with a lot of karmic lessons in that area. Is the Scorpio stellium in your second house? And do you have a North Node in Scorpio? Because if that's the case, you're dealing with a lot of karma when it comes to money. Okay, so I feel like for you, what you would have to look into healing money issues and really understanding certain karmic patterns when it comes to your relationship to money. And it could be very ancestral, where some family lines, they could have the spirit of poverty running through them generationally. So, Ava, you said your presence is pure and you're very analytical. Well, well, it is what it is. Dave, you said I'm very classy. Thank you. You said your North Node is in Pisces, but you do have Pisces in the second house. Okay, so your North Node is in Pisces. So, with your North Node being in Pisces in the second house, so in this lifetime, well, you're definitely supposed to do something spiritual as a form of income. So, working with art, spirituality, you're not meant to do something traditional. I'm going to tell you that much. And it's not going to be easy either. It's not an easy path because the second house is a earth house, and then you have a water sign in this earth house, especially a water sign like Pisces. So it's really about trust in the process. So you are somebody who could experience where it may be a while before you even see like monetary gain from like any type of art or any type of creative thing that you do. Not to say it won't happen, but is really about trusting the process. So it's interesting. You're actually having your nodal return right now. But do you guys have any questions about anything that I spoke about in the live? Ava, you said, why do Plutonians trigger others or get polarizing reactions? And so, why that happens is because Plutonians, they're mirrors. They're mirrors. And Pluto energy is highlighting the shadow energy. So, when you're a Plutonian, you're working with the shadow. You embody the presence of the shadow energy. So, when people encounter you, you force them to look at themselves, right? It's like you're always holding a mirror up to people, right? And when people are around you, you tend to bring out the shadow qualities of that person. So this is why Plutonians, they could trigger jealousy, hate, all of these things in people because this is your role as a Plutonian. As a Plutonian, your role is to transmute, okay? Not only are you doing this for yourself, but you also introduce people to this as well. And a lot of the times, to be honest, people aren't going to be ready for it, which is why you could find, like, as a Plutonian, a lot of people just don't like you. And it's really nonsensical, but I feel like that is the nature of Pluto, where it's not going to make sense. You know what I'm saying? Because you're dealing with the hidden energies. So it's not going to be apparent what's going on, especially in your interactions with other people. It's like you could evoke a strong reaction from somebody, and they may not really understand why they feel like that about you. But as a Plutonian, especially if you understand psychology, you know why though. Billy, you said, do you think the Orishas Oya would help with this? Absolutely. Absolutely. There's quite a few um, dark god, dark goddess deities out there to work with. I just named a few because I didn't want to go on and on in this live, but um, Oya, absolutely. She is the goddess of transformation. You know, I worked with a priestess. She was actually initiated into Ifa, and she would always say that I remind her of Oya, and I was like, ooh, I love her. She's definitely underrated too. Yes, all of these deities, Billy, they're all linked to Pluto. I'm soul based. If you have a specific planetary alignments where certain gods want to work with you more, could be, could be. Yes, yes. Like, say if you're very Venusian, you could find that a lot of deities like Oshun, Lakshmi, they want to work with you more. Or, like, say you do have heavy Plutonian energy, you could find that um, the more intense deities want to work with you, like the Oyas, the Olokuns. Um, what's the other one? Shiva, Kalima, you know. If you're more solar, if you're more solar based, you may connect with like the deity Ra or Apollo. So yeah, depending on your alignments, yes, certain deities will want to work with you more because you guys are resonating on the same frequency. Billy, you said, I think that I'm under Oya because the weather usually affects my mood. Like, I got mad one time and I saw a lightning strike in the sky. I haven't been able to tap into this gift, but I remember there was a time where every time I cried, it would start raining. Like, it was so interesting. And even my friend noticed at the time too. She was like, every time you get upset or like you cry, like it just starts thundering and raining. So I resonate with that too, Billy. I haven't been able to tap into that gift in a while, but this was more so when I was younger. You have Scorpio, Mars, Mercury, and Pluto, Ava, in the second house. Would that mean I trigger other self worth? Absolutely. Absolutely, you do. So that means you're having your Mars return right now, Ava, because Mars is in Scorpio. But I also feel like, too, this could also be on the flip side, too, Ava, where people trigger you. People trigger you. What are my three favorite alignments to see in a chart? I I love Pluto in the first house, people. Um, and I love them because I have Saturn in the first house, so I feel like it's an energy that I resonate with, and I have a lot of respect for Pluto in the first house people. So that's one thing. Um, do they have to be like Plutonian alignments, or you just want to know in general which ones do I like? But that's one of them. But I'll tell you the other two depending on what you say. Second house stellium, anyone definitely are the silent trigger people. Absolutely. Absolutely. Generally speaking, well, that's one. I do like that. Um, I like to see. Hmm, it's so hard to choose because I just love everything. I'm so fascinated by just energies in general, but Let me see. I think that's a hard one. That's a hard question to answer. I'm so based because it's like I find fascination in different alignments. Like I don't really have a favorite, I would say. But I do like Pluto in the first though. Ava, you said I don't really feel triggered by people, but I notice I trigger others. I will observe this in myself more. So I feel like you've gotten to a place, Ava, where it's like you've gotten a handle over embracing your shadow, which is a good thing. Because I feel like some people who are Plutonian, they they could kind of go through a period where they kind of feel ashamed or they kind of feel bad about their energy. So it's good to know that you don't feel triggered by other people and you've kind of embraced that you kind of trigger other people. I feel like that's the key because these are the same people that will try to make you second guess yourself. These are the same people that will try to make you hate yourself. And the key as a Plutonian is to be aware of what's going on in the dynamics. And I'm telling you, once you clock a lot of the dynamics with people, nobody could bother you. Nobody could shake you spiritually. Do you guys have any questions about the session? Do you guys have any questions about the Plutonian alchemy session? You said you wish you had a Libra Mercury. Where's your Mercury? How much do I charge for a chart reading? Which one? Because I have different astrology readings. For my regular chart reading, like it's called the Cosmic Blueprint on my website, I charge 160 for that. And it's a pre-recorded reading. And I basically touch on all the houses that have planets in it. Yeah. Let me leave it cosmicode.net. That is my website. So I am soul based. Definitely go check out my website. I recently rebranded, but I have all my services up and running. And like I said, I'm open for October if you want like the session, like the live sessions. Um, but you could book a pre-recorded reading at any time. So last call, you guys. Do you guys have any questions about anything I talked about in the live that you need me to go in more detail on? Do you have any questions about the session that I just announced? So I can answer any of you guys' questions before I wrap it up here. Pluto energy asks you to transform or be stuck, cycling, right? Be stuck looping in the same karmic cycles or transform, right? The choice is yours. So that is all I have for today, you guys. I hope you guys found this insightful and helpful. And feel free to reach out to me uh, through my website, through Instagram. And yeah, thank you all for coming.